for a school for our three children. And we and I fell in love with TDS primarily for three reasons. The first has to do with our attention to or our focus on scholarship. I would say that we are by no means an academic pressure cooker, and I know that your little ones are just sort of starting that academic piece. But there is definitely a positive student culture of hard work and achievement at TDS as you go through the grades, which is to say it's cool to do well here and be recognized for that. You can see this in how our students engage with our curriculum. You see it even more for the collective enthusiasm there is for all sorts of enrichment activities. And again, most of these would be more relevant as your kids get older, but things like Battle of the Books, Science Olympiad, Odyssey of the Mind, Math Counts, the Geography Bee, the Spelling Bee, even Math Week, and we celebrate Pi Day, and one of our third graders last year was on the local news for reciting more than 300 digits of pi. The participation in all of these extracurricular activities really speaks to the kind of students that we have at school. I can tell you on a personal note, all three of my children graduated from TDS and were all exceptionally well prepared for high school. And again, I would say that they are the rule rather than the exception. The second piece is our attention to our commitment to character and character education. And what I'd say about that is that TDS is a place where doing good is more important than doing well. So everyone knows our 5 core values of integrity and respect and compassion and responsibility and resilience. And we like to say that we're getting an extra dose of resilience training this year. And I would say that these core values are woven into everything that we do at TDS. And there's an age-appropriate progression from the concrete. So in TK, you have Ms. Dilatore's responsibility rug or integrity table, all the way up to the more nuanced and abstract, where our middle schoolers are having conversations about where they see core values in the world and where they don't see them. And as you might imagine, that conversation is ongoing. The final piece for me, when I think about TDS, is our commitment to community, or I might even say family. So TDS is a place where everyone feels known and valued and connected and loved. And I'm fond of saying that our size, we're a small school, our size is a necessary but not a sufficient condition for that sense of community. And what I mean by that is we don't assume that just because we're small, we have it. We are quite intentional in establishing community through a lot of different ways. Some of those ways have vanished or at least been put on for hold for this year. I am not shaking the hand of every child that comes into school. Our 5th graders are not opening car doors. Random hugs between kindergarten and 7th graders are not happening. Our Harry Potter-esque house structure getting together on Friday afternoons to have kindergartners and 8th graders and everyone in between kind of doing fun stuff is not happening. And parents are not being invited, at least in person, into the classroom to read and to help and things like that. All of these things will happen again as soon as we can have them happen safely. And in the meantime, I think our teachers are doing an exceptional job of creating classroom communities and pulling in our off-campus learners as well. So all this adds up to what I would call a transformational experience, which means I think that your kids, our kids, are different for having gone to TDS. Finally, I just want to say a quick few words about this year. We have been in person since August 19th, and I would say that we are in person for 2 reasons. Number one, we decided as a school that in-person learning is integral to the TDS experience because we're so heavily relationship focused. And so that if there was a way to mitigate risk and do things safely, that we would spare no effort or spare no expense to make that happen. And the second reason is our teachers. And make no mistake, it is not an easy year to be a teacher, right? Our teachers have been reinventing how they teach, particularly in the younger grades, to conform to our safety measures, right? There's no sharing in kindergarten this year, and kindergarten is normally all about sharing. They are vigilantly enforcing mask wearing and social distancing. Our kids have been really good about that. They're teaching, perhaps the most important one, they're teaching children in the classroom and at home, in some cases simultaneously. and they're wearing a mask and being at school all day in the middle of a pandemic. So I would just leave you with the thought that our teachers are the real heroes this year. But our teachers are the real heroes this year and really every year, and they are what make TDS so special. With that in mind, I'm going to introduce you to a former TDS teacher who is still a teacher, but also our first ever lower school director, and that is Natalie Ditmore. Natalie.
Hi, everybody. As Doug said, I was a teacher at TDS before stepping into this director role. I taught third grade here for 2 years, and was at two previous independent schools before that in two different states. So TDS is my third independent school, and something I always like to say, so you'll probably hear me say it more than once, is just that I think in independent schools, especially, we find schools kind of touting that word community quite often. And it's something that in deciding kind of where to come when I moved to North Carolina, I found that TDS really stuck true to its sharing of community. And I think a lot of times we hear schools use that word and we don't necessarily know what it looks like. And I can say that we just really do foster a genuine community within our classrooms, within our different grade levels across middle school and lower school, et cetera. So with that comes, as Doug said, the priority that all of our students feel known. And this starts from the minute they get out of their car in the morning, where they're typically greeted by a fifth grader. This year, it's greeted by a staff member while they're getting their temperature taken. But they're greeted by name every single morning as they walk in the building. And that's kind of the expectation throughout the day, that every single one of our staff members knows all of our kids and can greet them by name. I had a prospective teacher walking around touring and interviewing the other day, and we were walking around and greeting the kids by name. And he looked at me and said, "So do you know about 60% of the kids?" And then I laughed and said, "No, sir, we know 100% of them." And that's just kind of what's expected of our staff and what happens kind of naturally around here. So we really do in our lower school focus on relationship really carefully, and that starts in the classroom. So we follow a responsive classroom model, which is just a student-centered approach that really fosters on fostering an intrinsic desire to do well. And so it really puts the students at the heart of everything we do. We really do believe that the best learning happens when students feel known and safe and cared for. So that relationship between the student and the teacher is extremely important. And the relationship between the student and the rest of their peers is also extremely important to us. And so while we do place all of this emphasis on character education, we believe that that lays a really strong foundation for having high academic standards for our students and really kind of pushing to get the best out of our teachers and out of our students. I like to say that we hold our students accountable for reaching their own academic goals and for reaching their own academic potential, no matter what their starting point is. So how do we do this? Our academic curricula and resources across all grade levels are chosen really carefully and chosen really meaningfully. And they're regularly researched and kind of audited to ensure that we're serving our students well. So if we start a new reading program, we don't just kind of throw it at our teachers and just kind of hope it goes well for the next 5 years. We're constantly kind of assessing, making sure that that's what's serving our students as best it possibly can. Our teachers are constantly seeking professional development opportunities to kind of make sure that we are up on the latest research. And that said, we also are in a school that kind of jumps on trends and jumps on kind of a popular new curriculum without really making sure that it's what's going to serve our students best. So I think that's something that really sets us apart, is just the quality of our teachers and the quality of our administration to really make sure that the materials and resources that we're bringing into our classrooms are things that are really meaningfully and directly chosen for our students. We also support our students with what we call our student success team. We have a full-time literacy specialist, a full-time learning specialist, and a full-time counselor. And the three of them meet weekly and ended up meeting way more than once a week, but they kind of have a standing meeting where they go through our class rosters. They talk through every single student. They talk through who they're meeting with, what the needs are, just to make sure that the three of them are all kind of in the loop on the needs of all of our students and making sure that everyone's needs are being met and that those are kind of communicated across the three of them. So I often like to say that when a student enters our community, they end up kind of getting a team of people to build around them. And that starts with, if they start with us in TK, that starts with their TK teacher. And as they move up across grade levels, our teachers will collaborate. They'll talk about what that student needs and how to have that student find success in the classroom. And we really do just kind of become a team of counselors and specialists and administrators and teachers that really do just want the best for each and every individual student. Doug touched a little bit on our kind of community relationship. He mentioned our Crossroads program, which is our Harry Potter style houses. So about once a month on Fridays, students meet with their house, and they're all named after different tornado or weather-esque phenomenons, just because our mascot is the tornado. So we broke up our TK through 8th graders into houses, and they will do community service projects or play games or just kind of have some bonding time with students across all of these different grade levels. And those houses remain the same as the students grow. So they really get to know each other within their house. And it's really fun to see those bonds form over those years. And we also run a buddies program. So in our lower school, we have kindergarten paired with 3rd grade and 1st grade paired with 4th grade, et cetera. For them to read together, do art projects together, celebrate holidays together, and just kind of foster relationships across different grade levels. And that's something that they really do look forward to every year. Something that's looking a little bit different this year, but our teachers are finding creative ways to still foster those relationships. And then another huge part of our community is our complements and specialists program. And those teachers are just a huge part of your students' TDS experience as well. So our students will visit an art, science lab, Spanish, science, PE. Oh, I don't have my list in front of me, technology and library. And those teachers meet at different amounts with students across the week, but they really do become part of your students' team and TDS experience as well. And then I just wanted to emphasize that we just have fun in lower school. We have a lot of fun traditions that our teachers have kept alive and have found ways to keep alive in this year. We recently had a pajama and reading day where all of our students came in PJs, and we kind of vowed as a school to stop for 30 minutes and read. And each student was passed out an individual hot chocolate packet, and teachers turned on their Netflix fireplaces. And so we like to take something like a 30-minute reading period and really turn it into something fun and meaningful and memorable for our students. So speaking of fun, I'm going to hand it off to our amazing TK teacher, Mrs. Delatorre, who will tell you a little bit more about our TK program.
And this is my 10th year teaching TK at TDS, and this is my happy place. This is the only place I will teach. I'm like one of those baseball players that has signed a long-term contract. I have also taught in California and New Jersey, and I'm also a TDS alumni parent. Both of my children have graduated from TDS, and they are now in high school, and one is on his way to college. Assisting me in this TK program is Kayla Wallace, who is also the other TK teacher, and Kirsten Hill, who is our full-time assistant, who splits her time between both classes. And people often ask me, why do you like that grade? And I say, this is the grade that has the single greatest year of growth. And you can see how they become, they come from this baby, I can't do this, mommy, help me, to they become self-sufficient, caring, capable citizens. And it is my maximum joy to watch that happen over the space of 1 year, and sometimes 2, because our program does bridge the gap between 3 all the way to 5 years old. Our schedule, as you can see, is broken up into 30-minute blocks. Everything happens within 30 minutes, except for rest time, which is 45 minutes. And so there is just a constant moving, changing of subjects. And although we are moving between subjects, we are always striving to make connections between all of the subjects. So my children just came back from science lab where they wrote a card about being thankful. And we will use that, and we just integrate every subject as much as we can. All the complements know what we're learning so that they can help us reinforce those concepts. This year, I am the Spanish teacher for all of TK. And as a group, we are always together the entire TK. Although we are 2 classes, we do play together and eat together while socially distanced at all times. Moving on to reading, this is where it all starts. So we like to start with total physical response phonics, and we have a little video to show you what that means. Not sure if you can hear it. Okay, we often have difficulty with the video. So what they are doing is saying the letter, making the sounds, and making a body movement to go with it. So if we say J says J, J, and then they all jump. This is especially critical now that we are all masked. So it is very hard for them to see my face when I'm saying a letter, but when they know the action, they know what the word is. So often when we're rhyming, we might say, what did you say? And S makes the squeeze sound. And if someone is saying, no, I said pay, and that is the P sound for pulling. So we do this every day. And we also work on a weekly poem, which helps them to recognize high frequency popcorn words and rhyming words, and just basically developing fluency of how to read left to right. We're setting the scene for what's to follow. Our goal for the end of TK is to be sound spelling and reading in an early level. And that is accomplished over the course of the year. We have some work samples that you'll see later. That video keeps going. During math, everything that we learn in math is experiential. So if we're counting, we are physically counting things. If we are learning about place value, we are doing that in our calendar. As we learn any new concept, we try to get their hands on and do an activity so that it will really mean something to them. This is a photo of one of our students making a pumpkin tower during STEM. So first they brainstorm an idea, collect some materials, and then test it because these pumpkins did hit the ground several times until they're successful. And then of course they want to share with everyone and we take a picture. We count all kinds of things in class and we celebrate all these days. When we get up to the 100th day, that is a big celebration. And like Doug said, we celebrate Pi Day. We have an idea that pi has something to do with circles. We do talk about the circumference and ratios, but really what they're celebrating is pi and the numbers and trying to memorize them, which is something that they very much enjoy. And we will frequently get students that can memorize 25 digits of pi in TK. We just basically have the children understand that math is something that helps us to compare our world. So if we're graphing or we're comparing our heights or the number of letters in our name, it all comes together. Here's some writing samples that we can, oh, they went away. The writing samples. At the beginning of the year on the left-hand side, you can see that sometimes they're just drawing pictures or trying to make a letter J, as you can see, and we will help them with a highlighter and maybe turn that letter in the right direction. We will write words for them. On the right-hand side, you can see that they are already sound spelling, and so they're writing snake, and they don't hear that silent E, but that is snake to all of us. There's a skate, and you can see that there's some sequins, and that's really what we hope for, is for them to be able to put their own ideas in their own way, and sound spelling is the way to get them there. For character development, that is a big part of TK. Our core values are referenced daily. The children know about our 5 core values, and conflict resolution is as important as academics. So we spend a lot of time teaching children how to get along, even more so now that we're masked and we need to respect everyone's space. But the children spend a lot of time just getting used to what they need to do to be a successful citizen in our TK class. And every child is celebrated as a talented tornado. In TK, in every grade, we select one of our core values. And this year we have started the children really putting some thought into it and saying, I want to get the integrity award, or I want to get it for responsibility. And so we will talk about what it takes to get that award. In years past, we've always had a lot of field trips in TK. It has been a huge highlight of our time visiting areas around the city. We will do a big Durham field trip where we end up at the Durham Bulls Athletic Park, where the children love to visit with Wooly Bull. He is a crowd favorite. And we've also been to lots of places, which we will go to when things return to normal. But in the meantime, we have turned our field trips into virtual opportunities. And so we've done a couple of field trips to the Piedmont Wildlife Center, where now the animals are very much up close and personal right in the camera, and the children get to ask their questions and get their answers right away. So we've had more of these field trips. They're just shorter in length. Obviously, our attention span is a little shorter when we're not actually there. But we're also having community helpers meet us in Google Meets so that we can ask questions and learn about different careers. Yesterday, we met with a dental hygienist. And so we are still trying to bring the outside into our classroom. And now we're just doing it virtually. The difference that a TK experienced at TDS, I think that while everyone is focusing on academics, we are trying to focus on the fun and making the most of this one precious year that sets the tone for everything that follows. When my children went to school, I was desperately sad to let them go. I had stayed home with them until they were ready for school. And I just wanted to sit in their backpack and hear what was going on in the classroom. So I really embody that for you. If you leave your kid in my class, it's almost like you're in there, because I will take more pictures of them, more videos, and we share all of that. We know that this is a wonderful time, and we just want them to have the best experience. We celebrate, like they said, we celebrate a lot of days that other people don't even celebrate. So if we're learning in science about apples and we want to know which one you like better, we blindfold them and make them take a taste test, because a lot of them think they like red apples, and then they all found out they really liked yellow apples. So we do a lot of experiencing and, like I said, celebrating. So we have some celebrations that we celebrate with everyone. Here's our Crossroads picture. We, back in the days when we could touch each other, the 8th graders often help us to get around and complete tasks that we're doing around the school. And there you can see someone helping them slam dunk, even when you're in TK. We celebrate Star Wars Day, Pi Day. We have a talent show that we perform in. We celebrate Earth, Wind, and Fire Day. We celebrate the 100th day. And we do all of this because we are a part of the whole student body. So we are performing and integrated into every aspect of the school. And I love TK because in the midst of madness, there's just a lot of fun. And I'm not sure the video will play, but the kids are enjoying themselves. And I hope you'll enjoy your time at TDS also. I'm going to hand it off to Mrs. Cowan for kindergarten.
Hi, my name is Amy Cowan, and this is my 11th year teaching here at TDS. My son is here this year. He is in TK with Miss Delatorre and loving every minute of it. There are 2 other teachers with me in kindergarten. Jordan Qualls is the other lead teacher, and Abby Lowe is our full-time assistant. And one of the things that we love about kindergarten is how much change there is during the year. They learn so much between academics and social skills, but my favorite is watching them learn how to read. A lot of them come in with knowledge of letter sounds and letters. Some don't. Some are still working on identifying letters. Others are reading on a 2nd grade level. So we have a very large span of academic reading ability that enters kindergarten. But when they are learning how to read, it is so amazing to see the excitement in their eyes. I just had a little girl the other day who stopped mid-sentence in her book and looked at me and was like, I can read, I'm reading words, and was so excited she could barely even continue on with the book because she was just so thrilled and proud of herself. We also work a lot on social skills and helping them learn how to advocate for themselves and discuss conflicts with one another instead of just having students come to the teacher and having us be the ones who talk to children about different things. We have them share how a situation made them feel with the other students. So they kind of take ownership in their feelings and they work it out together with a teacher just as a facilitator, which it's really nice to see by the end of the year. A lot of them are doing it on their own instead of coming to a teacher because they have the tools now to help themselves. So our schedule is very similar to TK's. We move pretty quickly. You'll see large guided reading blocks in there. However, those are broken up. There's like 5 activities that they do throughout that time, while I'll pull 2 or 3 kids at a time and we'll work on reading skills in small groups. So that is, in a typical year, the kids are playing together. So they'll have centers and we'll be doing different phonics games, working on high frequency words, reading big books, which they love to do, and I'll be working with a small group, and they rotate throughout that during the day. And during that time, Mrs. Lowe is with us, and she is helping to facilitate the smaller group activities that they are doing in the classroom. We have a lot of movement breaks. So you'll see in there, we have 3 recesses throughout the day. Some of them are 15 minutes, some of them are a full half hour. We are outside as much as we can be during those times. We eat outside, we play outside. Kindergarten plays with kindergarten. In the typical year, we also are able to play with TK. So TK and kindergarten are able to do a lot together. We are the classes that are in the HAC, the building, together. So we actually are able to see each other quite a bit. We have complements classes daily. You'll see there's an hour block that they go to science lab and Spanish, or sometimes it's art and music. We're in a block schedule right now, so it switches, and they'll have those for 4 weeks and then switch. And then throughout the whole year, they'll have PE twice. And then reflections is when Miss V, our counselor, comes in and she does a lesson on different things. She did the zones of regulation. She talks about how to have friendships and how to play with others. She'll come in and do extra lessons if the class is having a difficult time, working things out at recess. She might come in and do an extra lesson to talk with the students and help them come up with some strategies themselves. We have some highlights in our schedule. Mr. Nori comes every week and reads to our class. He will be with us later this afternoon, actually, and the kids get super excited to see him come in. We also have a mystery reader, and in a typical year, you would come into the classroom and the kids don't know that you're coming. You sign up privately, so the kids don't know, and then we do a whole drum roll, and you walk through the door, and whoever's parent it is or grandparent, they get very excited. Sometimes it's family friends who are visiting. It can be anybody that wants to come in and read to our class. This year we're doing it virtually. So just how we're talking on the computer, that is how parents are joining our class, but we are still doing the drum roll and sliding the parents' video call over to the smartboard, and they are just as excited to see their parents' face up on the screen. So that is a picture of our morning meeting area, and there's normally a rug, and we gather on the front carpet together every morning, and we greet each other, and we go through the calendar and the days of school. And this is kind of like an extra math time every day, because we'll practice with skip counting. We bundle tens and ones as we get farther into the year. We'll add hundreds, and we practice writing our numbers. We use little poems to help us to remember how to write the numbers. And so the students at this part of the year can already tell me all the poems as I'm writing the numbers for the days of school. We also have thematic books in that area where the students are able to read books about whatever season or holidays are during that time. We also have a morning message during morning meeting, and this is where every week we introduce 2 or 3 new high frequency words, which we call popcorn words because they pop up all over the place. And we use the highlighter tool on the smartboard to butter up the popcorn words. So they'll find them and come and butter them up, and then we'll read the message together and then clap on the popcorn word as we're reading the message. And it kind of just adds that physical connection to the word too, where they are seeing it and moving their bodies and spelling it, and helping them to retain it in their minds. So I know I touched on reading briefly. We have another area in the room that has a rug, and they are able to read books. We have leveled books in buckets where they're given a color, and that's books that they can read themselves independently. And then there's all of the picture books that they can also read. And they'll spend time there reading their books. They'll work during workshop in that area. And it's just another area for them to move, because we like to have the students be able to move around the classroom and work with different groups of kids. And having open areas like this in the room is really helpful and helps to facilitate that. During reading groups, we work on word work and different reading strategies. So we'll talk about making predictions or using picture clues when we don't know what the word is. We also work on the comprehension. So a lot of kids can read the books, but when they close it and you talk to them about it, we want to make sure that they can recall the information or make a connection to the book, or an inference as to why they think somebody might be doing something in the story. Every year, at the beginning of the year, we would like students to be at the level A book. And this is very repetitive text. This is when the students know their letters and their letter sounds, we move forward to forming words. And a lot of them are popcorn words. And for this story, they would read I can, and then they look at the picture of the book and they look at the word and they try and figure out what the word is. And it's very repetitive. It's I can ride, I can play, and so on. By the end of the year, we like them to be reading on a level D, leaving kindergarten. And this is where they have knowledge of high frequency words and spelling patterns, and they are able to use picture clues and context clues independently to figure out words in the stories. So during writing, we use Lucy Calkins' curriculum. And in the beginning of the year, our pictures are exactly with beginning letter sounds, and there aren't spaces, and their pictures are kind of developing in that area. And then by the end of the year, you can see there's spaces and words. Some of the popcorn words are spelled correctly, and their pictures are more detailed into exactly what they're writing about. So this is the typical what we have at the beginning of the year towards the end of the year, and the amount of growth that we see throughout writing. During writing, we have a whole group lesson once a week, and then we have individual writing time where they write on their own, and then we'll sometimes conference with them, or sometimes they are with a partner and they'll talk about their writing and ask each other questions about what the other one was writing about. And they're so proud and so happy about their writing when they're sharing it with their friends. Our math is a math and focus curriculum, and it comes with a lot of materials, and we add more materials because, just like Rose Del Torre said, hands-on is so important at this age. So in these pictures, we have students measuring with cubes. The little girl's measuring her leg. The other friends are outside and they were measuring different things. We have 2 different math groups. So Mrs. Lowe, the assistant in our class, she pulls an enrichment math group during our math times. So we'll give an assessment before a new unit, and if students already have mastered that content, then they would go with Mrs. Lowe and be able to do some enrichment math, sometimes logic puzzles, sometimes stretching them a little bit more in the same concept that we're learning in the classroom. And then that leaves a smaller group in the classroom that is able to do the lessons and learn and master these math concepts in a much smaller group size. We also celebrate the 100th day, which is so much fun and so huge in our building with TK in kindergarten, and Pi Day. There's always kindergartners who have mastered about 50 pi numbers, and I'm shocked every year because I cannot do that. So I'm in awe of them sometimes. We also focus on the core values. They're referenced daily when we're talking about academics. When they're working, we will say, you have shown so much resilience. And during STEM, we'll definitely talk about that when they're being responsible with their materials or respectful partners during their activity. We try to use those words when we are talking to them just throughout the day and everything that we're doing. Our field trips, we are just like Ms. De La Torre said, this year they will all be virtual, but typically we go to Mapleview Farms. So here's a picture of Mapleview Farms Silly Face field trip. And we go there and we are able to pick a pumpkin, but we take a class. Here's the class in a class that they run, where we learn about signs of fall and autumn and the life cycle of a pumpkin. And they really, really enjoy their time on the farm. We also try to go to a play performance. We do the Life and Science Museum in the spring. And we end the year at Bull City Gymnastics, which is right down the road. So we are able to walk there the last week of school for an hour, and they are able to play and do a bunch of centers and rotations that they have set up for us there. So like it has been said, my favorite thing about working here, and I've been here for 11 years and want my children here, is that everybody knows them and loves them. They are met academically where they are. We push them to reach their full potential. And I love the community that is here. So now I'm gonna send it off to Miss Beyer in first grade.
Hi, I'm Miss Beyer. I teach first grade. I've been here for 4 years now. And there, Miss Karen Fisher is the other first grade teacher. I'm gonna let these kindergarten pictures, all right, there we are. So one thing that I love about teaching first grade is similar to what Amy and Rose have already touched on, is just the growth, the amount of growth that you see with this younger age group from the beginning of the year to the end. It's really amazing to see them develop this love of learning, and they love school. And I think that TDS being what it is and the core values that we have has a lot to do with this love and joy that you see in the kids every day. Our schedule is similar to what you've seen. We have the complements classes daily. We have at least 2 movement breaks outside each day. We also we eat snack and lunch outside as well. Typically, we would do a lot of activities with the other first grade class. Of course, this year is different. We have blocks, math, writing, reading. Within those blocks, we have different small group activities, phonics activities. So it's never just them sitting in a chair for 30 minutes. It's always multiple activities and moving around during those times. We also have a morning meeting and a closing meeting each day, which is really important for us to build that community in our classroom, to greet each student by name, to have them share something every day. We have a mindfulness minute at the end of every single day where they take deep breaths or learn a mindfulness strategy. And we find that the kids really enjoy that time, and they're engaged, and they get to know each other so quickly with all of these community building activities we do. For reading, we start with a whole group mini lesson where we talk about a feature of a book or a fiction book, nonfiction books, and then we break into small groups. We do phonics practice and we do reading groups, and all of those things meet the child where they are, whether they're reading on a 3rd grade level or whether they are still practicing some of those phonics rules. We have support set up for them no matter what they need. We assess and observe them often. We make sure that they're moving, how they need to be moving. They're going to switch groups a lot and be with new kids and read different books all the time. So that's basically the way that we structure reading, writing, and math. We meet them where they are. We move them as they need to be moved. We make sure they're getting the support they need. So this would be an example of our writing beginning of the year to the end of the year. The beginning of the year, they're still practicing that sound spelling that they've gotten the foundation for in TK and kindergarten. They're starting to figure out what is a whole sentence and how to tell multiple details in the story. And by the end of the year, they're writing a lot more details. They're writing a lot more sounds in their words. And they're excited about telling a whole story or a whole how-to book or something like that. So this is actually just the first page of Henry's writing, and it was actually like 3 pages. So we love to see that growth in writing as well. Math, we use the same curriculum as kindergarten uses. It's math and focus. It starts concrete where they're using a lot of manipulatives, and then it moves to more abstract thinking where they're able to solve problems without using all of the blocks and things that they're able to. The skills build on each other throughout the year. So if a student is advanced in math, they're not just going to skip ahead to multiplication in first grade. They're going to do the same types of skills and strategies just with bigger numbers, or maybe thinking about more problem solving type of things. You'll see, the kids in the last slide, they were practicing flashcards because addition and subtraction fluency becomes much more important in first grade, memorizing those facts so that they have a strong foundation when they get to second grade and they start adding 2-digit and 3-digit numbers regularly. We try to make sure that they've memorized and they can automatically know a lot of those addition and subtraction facts. This is showing the phonics program that we use. They sort, that's a lot of hands-on. So they look at pictures and they sort words physically with their hands, and the word families that they go in are the word sounds. And this is also, like I said, grouped by skill. So there might be 4 different groups doing different things in the class at the same time. But we try to build that independence so they all know what to do on their own and they can get it out and get all the supplies they need without having a teacher assistant there with them all the time. This is showing a social studies assignment as well. So we put a lot of importance in diversity and learning about all different kinds of people, places, things, just having conversations about lots of different things from different cultures. The social emotional side of TDS is something that's been touched on several times, but I just want to reiterate it for first grade. We like to go play outside as much as we can. We like to encourage students to solve problems on their own, to work together, to talk to each other about solving problems, to come up with creative ways to solve problems with each other. We take breaks outside as much as possible. We take breaks inside as much as possible. We might stop if we notice we're wiggly and not listening. We might stop and do a go noodle and then go back to learning. So having that kind of flexibility in the classroom is really important and special at TDS. Some other special highlights of our schedule, Mr. Norrie also comes to read to us. He reads to all the classes. We do an art project once a week called Creation Station. So that's what this boy is working on. This is a Gaga pit, which children love to play with at recess. It really builds teamwork and cooperation. We have a mindfulness jar. We use stress balls. We use lots of kind of tools to teach children some character education type of building activities. For field trips, we go at least 1 per quarter, and we just make sure that they're tied to what we're learning. So if we're learning about the environment, we might go to the scrap exchange and do an art project with recycled materials. We try to go to a play that's based on maybe something we've been reading or talking about in reading. And we've done some Piedmont Wildlife Center activities like TK has done too, when we've learned about animals and science. So what makes our programs, our first grade special, and what makes TDS special is, I think, just what everyone else has said. It's the community, it's the joy, it's the warmth that you feel when you come to this school. Not only are the kids friends with each other, but the teachers are friends with each other, and families are friends with each other, and everybody knows everybody's name. And even at Carline, we know what cars people drive. It's something that is unique and special to any other school that I've been to, where it feels like maybe there's different cliques and different grades or doing different things. At TDS, it all just feels very cohesive and everybody is friends, like I said. And, you know, there's a sense of love and comfort here that I think is special. I think there's a few more pictures. But now I'll pass it off to Kim Su-Ling, who is a kindergarten parent.
Hi, everyone. I'm a parent at TDS. I am the parent, as Mrs. Byer just mentioned, of a kindergartner. You have seen her in several of those pictures. She has a way of getting in front of the camera constantly. So you definitely have seen her throughout the slideshow. So I want to talk a little bit about why I chose TDS and sort of my thoughts on TDS, having been there now in our 3rd year. When I first was looking for a school, I was looking for some place with strong academics, but that also focused on whole child development. And that was really important to me because I do want to raise child that's obviously smart and, successful, but I want to raise a child who is also socially conscious and wants to contribute essentially to her environment and her community. And it turned out that TDS was the place for us, and it was especially important given our particular journey. Kara is a late July birthday baby, and I think oftentimes those kids are somewhat difficult to place. So she entered TK right after turning 4, and she really struggled in TK. It was definitely a journey. And, around, I would say, middle of the year, Rose and Kayla at the time, who was a partner with Rose, started feeding back that, they had some concerns. And I do want to highlight specifically, the emphasis was not put on academics because, it was TK at the time. It was actually put on focus and her ability to adjust to a school and learning environment. And that was really important to me because it was critical that Kara started off with a good experience in school so that she would develop a love of school and a love of learning. So I worked with Rose, I worked with Kayla, we came up with a plan of action, and most of that was focused around trying to meet Kara where she was. And I really have to say, everyone was extremely supportive throughout this entire process. And to be quite honest, for the rest of the school year, we actually held a place in TK and in kindergarten. So there was no pressure or, a push to make a decision. It was sort of, let's just see where Kara is at the end of the year and let's make a decision. And so we saw where Kara was at the year and we decided to stay in TK. And I do have to say, it was really, truly the best decision we could have ever made. Kara matured so much during her second year in TK. And I feel like Rose and Kayla really took that opportunity to kind of push her, but not just in the academics, they really encouraged leadership and, and setting an example, which I think is important because Kara is the only child and, that's something that she needs to continue to work on. And now that she's in kindergarten, she is excelling in academics. She really, really is. She is reading chapter books. She, constantly loves to talk about science, but she's still developing her focus. And I love that. And she's actually in Mrs. Quall's class. And I love that Mrs. Qualls, she'll focus on the academics and she'll push Kara and she'll really, ensure that she's, working at the best of her ability, whatever reading level it is. But the emphasis is still put on developing that focus and developing her independent learning, which I think is important in kindergarten. Kara comes home and she talks not just about literacy and science lab, but she also talks a lot about the health value of our dinner. She talks about, and that's a little bit embarrassing sometimes, but, she talks about what's snack food and what's not, about the value of hydration, but she also talks about kindness and she talks about how to cope with stress. And again, this is all an emphasis on the whole body development of a child, not just the brain, but the heart, the health, everything. And I do think that focus, even just on nutrition, is greatly appreciated in this situation. And I really do have to say, I put complete trust in Kara's care and her nurturing while she's at the school. It's interesting because, obviously I have a strong relationship with Rose and so does Kara, but, even with Mrs. Cowan, who's, class Kara is not in, comments regularly on just how much Kara's grown because she's interacting with her. And, that happened throughout last year before Kara even got to K. And I would have to say that my thoughts on TDS were only cemented with kind of the thorough plan that they had for COVID, because it was a really robust online learning program that was developed in order to meet, the kids' needs when we first went into lockdown. But Kara really struggled with online learning. She was very lonely. She missed her classroom. And the plan to allow them to stay in school and stay safe has been amazing. And I have even seen just such a change in her from when she has gone back to school. And then the last thing I really have to emphasize is such a close parent network. Willing to help each other. The teachers are willing to help the parents. We hear about accidents or trains or, what are you doing with homework? I travel for work a lot. I am usually out of the country, and the teachers have always been extremely supportive of that. Understanding that Kara's got someone else for pickup, or if there was an issue, I will talk to Rose or Jordan from a hotel room, in the middle of the night, and we make it work. So I have just had an absolutely wonderful experience. I have never doubted the choice in school, and this is absolutely the school for us. Having said that, I will stop talking and open up the floor for any questions that anyone has to anyone.
Thank you so much, everyone, for listening in, taking part this morning. We do have a couple of questions in the chat room that I think we should go ahead and answer. One talks about assessing academics and social emotional development. I assume she is asking from the application standpoint, or are you asking, Kristen, for when they are in school?
From the application perspective.
Great question. Okay, so this year we are doing some things differently, and some of the people that you've listened to this morning will be actively a part of this assessment. When you apply, you will see that you should be, linked directly to kind of a sign up, and we are doing our typical developmental assessment that I've done for years here on campus, one-on-one, socially distanced. We'll be taking all the precautions into play. But please note that this is a developmental assessment. We're looking at kids to see where they are. This is not necessarily a yes or no, they pass the test kind of thing. These are well-respected, well-normed developmental assessments. In addition to if the child is attending, a preschool or some kind of school, we will ask for a letter of recommendation, gives us an idea of where your child is. We have put together this year a series of questions that are completely optional, but they're helping us get a better feel for your child because we can't bring them in on campus. Any information you want to share, we will be doing some Zoom meetings with families, as we continue on, if we need more information, we'll be working individually with each family. Does that answer your question, Kristen?
That's helpful. And so to repeat back, did you say that the developmental assessment is on campus? Like they
Yes.
would come for half
Yes.
day?
So we have 3 different dates set up. The first one is, I believe, December 5th. It's a Saturday. They'll take place, and if we can, we're going to hopefully be doing them outside. All the teachers that you've seen this morning are part of that. If the weather's not nice, we're going to be separating either in the HAC or in the gym.
And is the link, I didn't see that on.
Okay, I will, Kristen, I'll make a note to contact you via email and get that set up for you.
Okay.
Some other questions I've lost. Rose and Amy, Julie, can you answer any of these?
I'll say that there is some criteria for adding a 3-year-old to the TK program. It is usually that they are a sibling of someone who is already on campus. And obviously any 3-year-old joining our TK program is looking at 2 years of TK. Sometimes parents come in with expectations that maybe my child will, be well enough to pass, but we like to have our kindergartners 5. So if there is a 3-year-old coming in, they usually do that with the understanding that they'll be doing 2 years, and we do push them. So it is not a year where you can rest on your laurels because you know your alphabet. We will push you to keep working hard so that you can enter kindergarten with as much success as possible.
Yeah. The TK class, I see someone from Angela, is there a TK and a kindergarten class, or are these the same thing? They are different classes. We have 2 sections of transitional kindergarten, 2 sessions of kindergarten, each one with no more than 16 students. This year, they're a little bit smaller than that for obvious reasons. And then there's, as you probably saw, there are 3 teachers, two main teachers, and then a teaching assistant, who are, our teaching assistants are amazingly qualified, full-blown teachers that are helping, going back and forth to create those smaller group sizes, differentiation, et cetera. TK, transitional kindergarten, as Rose just stated, is 3.5 to 5, or 5, even 5.5. We have kids that are turning 6. I mean, not going into TK, but they're solid 5. So again, we're looking for developmental readiness. We will have some kindergartners that'll start at 5 that are ready to go. I mean, we prefer them to be a little bit older because of the curriculum and the program, but that's generally what we're seeing.
See, there's a question about high school in general. About half of our students go to public school and about half go to private school. That depends on the year a little bit. Private schools include Trinity, Durham Academy, Cardinal Gibbons, and the public is pretty much where you're zoned for. Our children do the Riverside Engineering Program, which is one of the pathways there, and really benefit from that experience. Some go to the Chapel Hill high schools as well, but Riverside obviously is the closest one to TDS. That's an informed choice that 14-year-olds make with their parents. And while all of you will no doubt make this decision for your children because your children are young, the nice thing about a K-8 or a TK through 8, sorry, Rose, is that the 8th graders are full participants in that high school selection process. And just like we have lots of different types of kids here, there are lots of different types of high schools out there. And we engage the family and also the 8th grader in kind of some pretty profound conversations about what's going to make sense for them.
Karen, I can answer your question about class sizes. So typically in lower school, our class caps are at 16. This year, that's slightly different just because we're kind of capped at what our classroom capacities were. But it's typically 16 students per lower school class. TK this year is slightly different. This is our first year with 2 full-time TK sections. We typically have had 1 TK section in our largest room with 2 lead TK teachers that had about 24 students, and that this year was split. Rose, you might be able to talk about numbers a little bit more. Might be wrong about 24. Maybe it was a little more like 26. Okay.
There were 18. This year we are capped at 12 in each room. We have 11 in either room right now.
We promised to try to get you. Let me see if there's any more. Am I missing anything? Please speak up too if you'd like to ask and follow up on anything.
Let me answer that question that just came in about the competitive enrollment, and that's a really
thank you.
Yeah, a really good question. So taking the long view of this, right? 8 years ago, we were single section in TK through 5, and we kind of doubled to 2 sections in middle school. We noted increase, so our at that point, our lower school classes were sort of bursting at the seams. And we noted just more and more interest in lower school. So the 2014 strategic plan called for the gradual shift from 1 to 2 sections in each lower school grade. We accomplished that ahead of schedule because we thought it was going to take 5 or 6 years, and really it took 3 or 4. So we find ourselves in non-COVID years where we are kind of growing into our new size. We've pretty much grown into it. So there's not we haven't. I would say that in terms of what admissions has looked like in most grades is this a mission appropriate family and a mission appropriate child, and one that we think is going to do well here. And if that is the case, then historically that has been a green light from us. We are reaching the point in different grades where there really is some enrollment pressure. So that's just something to know. We've tried to be responsive to that as best we can. I mean, Rose talks about the 2 TK sections for this year. We did that for 2 reasons. One, because of COVID, and also because we didn't want to turn TKers away. And we felt those that were mission appropriate. There's a balance, and that's sort of that the answer to that question is evolving. I would suggest that just work with Deb, and Deb is very hands-on for our prospective families, and dot the I's and cross the T's on the application, and have that come in November or December or January, as opposed to February, March, or April, and it's better.
I can answer the questions about tech and screen time in the classroom. Being with the COVID procedures, we have not put more screen time into the classroom. Obviously, the kids who are off campus have more screen time because that's how they're connecting into the room. But those that are on campus, we in kindergarten use the iPads 2 to 3 times a week, and then during technology. So they'll use it for 15 minutes in the classroom to begin a phonics lesson and then move on to their actual materials. Same with math, it might be a 15-minute game that they do on there to reinforce something, and then we move on to using manipulatives in books. And other than that, they are not in a screen. We use the smartboard to project just like you would a projector. So when we're doing an art craft, they can see me cutting and all of that using a document camera, but they're not with a screen anymore, and any more than an average year. And photos are shared through a password protected on our Google, it's through our Google Drive, through our website, but it is password protected, and so not anybody can just see these photos.
Rose, do you want to just say anything about TK or about TDS versus Montessori?
The chat, but yes, so in my experience, other than center time, the students in TK, it's a very much more structured day. So we are expecting them to do certain activities and complete assignments within an allotted time, and we move on. So there is a lot of structure to the day. They do have some choices, but it has more structure than a Montessori program that I'm aware of. So it would be structure.
Mm-hmm.
Again, we're happy to get, dig deeper into these questions as the process continues. We are all available to continue a conversation at a different time. Obviously, these are, important questions. The Montessori versus more of a traditional structured class is a big open-ended kind of question that unfortunately would take a lot of time to discuss this morning. And I wish we could bring you onto campus so you could see the difference. We do have many, many children that come from Montessori schools that tend to do well. And I think that's an important note to make. I am kind of being very cautious at the time. I've got teachers that have their students actually waiting for them in class. Again, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We really, really appreciate it. We did record this. If you know of anybody that needs to see it, shoot me an email and we'll get that to them. And again, I am here many hours of the day to help and to answer any questions. We look forward to working with all of you and wish you a safe and healthy holiday season. Thanks so much.
Let's just add that Deb and I will stay on, and if anyone has a question that they didn't have a chance to ask, that Deb and I will do our best to answer it. So again, thanks. And if you still have a question, stay on. Otherwise, have a great day.
Good idea, Doug.
Hi, can I ask a specific question on the assessment?
Sure.
So we are relocating to North Carolina next year, and right now we're still in Illinois.
Okay.
Shall we just make trip plan for the assessment, or there's other option?
Great question. So I have this happen every single year, and whether it's COVID or non-COVID, and I've been doing it for a long, long time. And what I would suggest is that you and I hop on a phone call and discuss this further. There are a variety of different ways to do it. If you are coming into town to house hunt or do something, we'll work around your scheduling. If that's not the case, I typically can work with other preschools or daycares in other communities to get the information I need. But why don't you give me a call or shoot me an email and we can discuss this further. But I guess the best way to answer that question is for everybody to understand that, as Doug and all the teachers have mentioned, we value our families and our prospective families, and we'll do whatever we can to make it as easy as we can for you as you work through this process.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Question. As Deb knows, we're going to be applying for a kindergartner and a TK, but our TK is going to be on the 3.5 side. And so I was just curious, from an assessment perspective, is she evaluated as a 3.5-year-old TK, or is she being compared to the 4-year-old, or how does that
Right.
work?
That's what I love about these assessments. That's why I keep kind of underscoring the developmental piece. They directly correspond to the age of their child. So what we're looking at in a nutshell is, when I'm looking at a 3.5-year-old, where is he or she relative to other 3.5-year-olds, not where she is to other 4-year-olds.
Perfect. Thank you.
Mhm.
On the tours, are the potential kindergartner able to come with them, or is it adults only? I saw the ones that are coming out in December. Not sure if my daughter can come with us to tour.
Yes. So what yes, to answer your question, she may come. What I've been doing is, it's kind of sad to walk through the campus with no children. You will see the after school kids on campus, but nobody else. And I just ask when they bring their children to and I always, kind of play a game with a child. Why don't you keep your hands in your pocket, or let's do this, just because I don't want them to be exposed to anything, because the kids have been on campus all day long. But we are really walking through the buildings, and we're kind of looking at them from a distance. And I feel like we're keeping you as safe as I'm keeping my own students safe. So to answer your question, yes, you may bring her.
Okay, great. And if they have a sibling, can the sibling come as well? He's 3, so I'm not sure if I can.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm not telling you how to raise your children, do whatever is comfortable, but many families have done that. They've just put their child in a stroller, and it's made it easier. So, because again, it's in a normal year, I'd be like, oh yeah, this is a school for kids, but now I'm really trying to protect you. So you don't want he or her to be touching things. So whatever works for you, but if you can hold him, or he or she is really good at just kind of keeping hands to himself, that's fine.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Other questions out there?
How much do you guys celebrate like different cultures and things like that?
Great question. Natalie or Doug, you want to take that one?
Yeah, I can take that one, and then Doug can kind of piggyback. So that's a huge emphasis of our social studies program in TK through 5, which we're actually kind of restructuring even more so to be a heavier focus on kind of our diversity and inclusion initiatives. We kind of make sure that students are brought out of their North Carolina bubble and out of their United States bubble to understand that there is a huge world around them, and understanding kind of their place in that world and their role, and that their perspective and that their experiences kind of inform the way that they learn about the world, and that might be different from other people. So that's one of our big kind of social studies emphasis. And then we do multiple events throughout the year to kind of celebrate different cultures. We just, for Hispanic Heritage Month, did a big, we had kind of like a Day of the Dead presentation that our Spanish and art teachers worked on together. And our Spanish teacher did a really wonderful presentation on just kind of the history of kind of colonization and kind of celebrating the Latinx community. And she did it at a really appropriate level for all kind of TK through 8th graders. And then in the spring, we have an international week and an international festival where we have different themes every day. So Monday might be language, Tuesday might be food, and teachers will kind of integrate activities to kind of celebrate the cultures of the students in their particular classroom in general, if they can. And then on Friday, we cap that with a huge international festival where we have families come in from our community and kind of do cooking classes and dancing classes, and kind of create this big event for us to celebrate all the cultures within our school and just around the Durham community in general.
Yeah, I would just add that we are by far our biggest and most active kind of official parent group is our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, which has, I don't even know how many parents. It's not like everyone's a member, right? But it's like who shows up for the meetings, and they are incredibly active. This Sunday, I believe, they're hosting a Zoom Diwali celebration, and there's sort of different sort of support groups and networking groups within the school when it comes to that. And I would say it's a balance between things like International Week and then also, as Natalie is saying, just making sure it's just part of the water and part of the curriculum, right? So it's not, we don't just sort of celebrate one group during Hispanic Heritage Month, but it's sort of making sure that it's a very inclusive approach all along. Having said that, International Week's a highlight, and we did it from home last year because it was in April, and we did it well, and I was proud of it. I mean, we had several parents who invited us into their houses to cook a meal, a family recipe. It was just really neat. So that was a highlight for us at a stressful time of year.
I don't want to dominate. I do have another question though.
Please.
This Spanish, the foreign language instruction I saw is important in the early years. Is that something that continues through elementary school and middle school? And are there opportunities to learn other foreign languages at all?
Yeah, good question. Right now we are a one world language school, and that is Spanish. That does, as you alluded to, start all the way in TK, and that's reliably twice a week in the 7 years from TK through 5th grade. And it is what you might think of as lower school Spanish. So there is a heavy emphasis on culture and celebration. Having said that, they are also learning Spanish. They're learning songs and more nouns than grammar, but they are learning Spanish. And then in 6th grade, it is what you would think of as sort of the traditional middle school, or really it's kind of the high school Spanish 1 broken down into 1A in 6th grade and 1B in 7th grade, with the expectation that that continues into 8th grade with kind of a Spanish 2. Some of our kids will zoom through that, others will get part of the way through and then want to repeat that in high school. It sort of depends on their acquisition. But once you get to 6th grade, Spanish is 45 minutes a day, 5 days a week, just the same as math and English and science and social studies and PE. So your kids are a long way from middle school, but it does, the transition from 5 to 6 is where it goes from twice a week for 30 minutes to daily for 45 minutes. And it start taking, it's just more robust at that point.
I would add that the TK and K students around here in the HAC believe they can speak Spanish. I mean, they will, it's really fun to watch. So there's a lot of enthusiasm for that.
Well, we have a very exciting and exuberant Spanish teacher, and Rose is obviously fully fluent, and so she's doing the TK Spanish this year and she loves it. So I think she's been wanting to do it for years, and this year she put her stake in the ground and said, I'm doing it. So it's been good.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Well, I think
Any others out there?
I don't see anything else being.
Well, I have put, Natalie, maybe you just drop your email into the chat. I have put mine there and Deb's there and Natalie is putting her there. So if anything comes up, you can find us all on the website as well. I'm just stalling for a second to see if there's any final questions, but if not, I wish everyone a wonderful day, and we look forward to seeing you with Deb on campus soon, I guess.
We really appreciate you taking the time to meet with us this morning. Thank you so much. And again, stay well.